unmuted, please?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly. Please go ahead.
Good.
Thank you.
Very good. So you want me to just start?
Yes, please.
Okay. First of all, let me offer my Dandavata obeisances all to the assembled devotees. Panchakalpatru Vyasa Sindhu Vyavachapati Tanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Anyhow, I personally, my relationship with Srila Prabhupada and joining the Hare Krishna movement has been a very personal journey, which I came like in 1985. So I don't really have a whole lot of personal stories regarding my relationship with Srila Prabhupada and personal opportunities to be with him. But nonetheless, as with all of us, I have many emotional experiences, and I'm going to share kind of a short story about how if I had not met Srila Prabhupada, I would probably be an atheist today, because I was raised in a family of 5 generations of engineers, and I think there's probably many engineers that are listening now. We're very pragmatic people, we're very calculating people, and we're very wanting to see how we can make things better and what's the nature of materials and how things fit and that sort of stuff. And when you apply that to our lives, it naturally starts drilling down into kind of questions of, well, why are we here and what are we doing and why are we doing it? And there's a mantra that's used in the United States Army. They could say, be all that you can be. And so that was a natural question, which was, well, how can I be all that I can be? I mean, that was sort of a burning question as a young child. And you wonder, I mean, who doesn't really want to be all that they can be? But when you're a youth, being all you can be might be the class clown, or the misfit, or just to get attention. That egocentric drive starts really, really early in our life. But hopefully, as we actually mature, we hopefully mature out of some of those dysfunctional behaviors. And again, the question became more and more serious as I got older. As to, well, just exactly how can I be all that I can be? And my background was such that I was raised a Presbyterian, which wasn't really a strong evangelical Christian spirit. My parents wanted me to have some sense of God and some sense of ethics and responsibility. But and I did appreciate the teachings of the Bible, but it was also, a lot of things about the Christian tradition is very controversial. And I think most of us are aware of, the Inquisition and indulgences and bishops that are making a lot of money and so forth. And then, of course, I wanted to continue to look and see what other possibilities, if I'm going to be all I can be, okay, well, maybe Christianity doesn't quite fit the bill for me. Well, let me look around and see what other traditions are offering. And, I studied Buddhism a little bit, but I never got it. I could never see how, just sitting and facing the wall and meditating, that didn't seem to really do anything for me. And, the New Age movement has always been around in one shape or flavor, and that didn't really seem to make any sense. So what really made sense to me, and starting to make sense to me, was atheism. It's just like nobody seems to really know what they're talking about, and there's just too many contradictions and too much hypocrisy and too much, vague questions and pontificating and so many things like that. But what was interesting is, although I did understand it at the time, Super Soul was telling me that atheism is not really the answer either. Krishna was speaking to me from within the heart, and he was going, no, that just doesn't feel right. That's the problem with atheism. And yet I was still very frustrated because I didn't really seem to have a goal or a direction. And I wanted to know what to do. So, again, the whole atheism is kind of like, live today, for tomorrow you shall die, and that seemed very selfish. So eventually I ran into the devotees in Paris, France. I've talked about how I actually joined the movement in other videos. I'm not going to go into that here. But you know, the four flaws really kind of like ate away at me. I just, if I can't figure it out for myself, then I'm really in trouble here. But of course, what was good about it was that, the Bhagavad Gita gave us the four flaws. Prabhupada gave us the four flaws, but he also gave us a whole lot of other stuff. And that was the part that really spoke to me about the Bhagavad Gita. I picked up the Bhagavad Gita just within the year that it was published, in 1972, I believe it was. Within that year, I actually got one of the original first copies of the Bhagavad Gita, and I read it. And what was wonderful, and we all have our different various appreciation of what we received and what spoke to us. But what was really wonderful was that he didn't mix his words, as we all know, but he gave us, the Sankhya side of religion, which I don't really see. The other faiths pick up bits and pieces of it here and there, but Prabhupada gave us like a whole spectrum of what, the mechanics of how religion works, the kind of stuff that engineers want to know. It's like, the four flaws, and then there's the three aspects of Godhead: Brahman, Paramatma, Bhagavan. The all the different varieties of studies. And one of the particular things that I eventually really appreciated was that, everybody, I live in Ojai, and because there's a shortage of devotee association, I find myself going to other kind of programs just to kind of see how they're presenting things to the world. And every Christmas, particularly during the holiday seasons, everybody gets very sentimental, and they have all sorts of programs, and they inevitably always pray, dear God, please bring us peace. The world's a mess. I mean, everybody knows that. You don't even have to be half a spiritualist. I think all the atheists know the world's a mess too. The question is how to fix it, how to actually create a better world. And they all get up and they all pray, dear God, please bring peace. Oh, we're praying you to please bring peace. And they're very earnest. But when you listen carefully, what you hear or what you don't hear is what they're willing to do to have peace, which is really the main function. It's kind of like, it's the usual selfish, egocentric attitude of like, damn it, we want peace. God, would you please put peace on this earth? But actually, nobody's saying, this is what I'm willing to do in order to have peace on earth. And what was really wonderful is that Prabhupada actually gave us the peace formula, which was, chant Hare Krishna, introduce that into your life all the time. And then, of course, the four regulative principles, which, you can't follow the four regulative principles if you're a selfish person. It just doesn't work that way. And of course, we all know, and this is interesting too, because in every faith, humility is always put at the top of the ladder in terms of behavioral patterns you want to try to adopt. And Prabhupada just took that a little bit further and said, well, you also want to adopt these four regulative principles. And we can see how the four regulative principles, if you actually develop a appreciation for, stopping the killing the animals, and stopping chasing all of the opposite sex, and stopping the gambling, the indulgences and stuff like that, and intoxications, then right there you've eliminated a tremendous amount of the problems and the conflicts that are happening between people and between nations. So this was one of the brilliant things that Srila Prabhupada gave us, which I just, again, he actually gave us answers. He didn't just go on with these, what they call them, pithy maxims, and, what the whole New Age people do, and a lot of the current gurus do. They give these sort of pseudo answers, but they really don't add up too much. And the other thing that I really thought was brilliant was how Prabhupada gave us the full entire Bhagavad Gita. Now, I know that sounds a little silly because there's a lot of people who've translated the Bhagavad Gita, but I know for a fact that there's a few contemporary, or at least back in the 60s and 70s, contemporary gurus who did not give us the full Bhagavad Gita, and yet it was a Bhagavad Gita. And I can't remember exactly who it was, but I know one of them only translated up to the 12th chapter. And I think there's one or two others who only chant, actually more currently, I won't mention their name, but people have made comments on Bhagavad Gita. They like to present Bhagavad Gita to, because everybody knows, Prabhupada always told us that everybody knows that you have to deal with Bhagavad Gita. If you want to be accepted as any kind of a real legitimate spiritual person, at least from the Indian point of view, you got to deal with Bhagavad Gita. Even Shankaracharya had to deal with the Bhagavad Gita. But so what some of these people will do is they'll deal with the Bhagavad Gita, but they'll leave out the parts they really don't want to talk about, or they know that if they talk about it, it's not going to support the current following that they have, and they got that motive to want to have a large following, which of course we all know Prabhupada was just, boom, it's whatever Bhagavad Gita as it is. We're going to talk about what actually Krishna says, whether you like it or not. I'm not going to change it just because you have some hippie idea that I want to smoke pot and get high and realize God on my own terms. It doesn't work that way. So Prabhupada gave us the Bhagavad Gita, and he gave us all 18 chapters. And if we look at the last 6 chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 14, the 3 modes of material nature, right there, all of a sudden, guess what? There goes your right out the window goes your whole non-judgment thing, which is sort of the mantra of the day nowadays. Or in politics, it shows up as, being politically correct. And Prabhupada said, no, it's like, here's what's good. Here's what's probably most people are doing in the mode of passion. And by the way, yes, there is a thing called evil, and it's described, and the boundaries of it are outlined in the modes of nature regarding ignorance. So how daring that Prabhupada would come and actually put a definition on what was ignorance, or at least he shared with us what Krishna's definition of what ignorance is. And, a lot of people don't want to hear that. They want to think that they're wonderful when they're doing things which are maybe very much in the mode of ignorance. So chapter 15, the yoga of the supreme person. It's like, wow, you mean there's actually a person out there? Again, very, very personable, very, very definitive. Krishna has a personal look. He has a place he lives. He has a lifestyle that we can appreciate. But we have 5 prominent different relationships with him. All of these things are very elaborately explained, whereas that's not, you don't find that anywhere else. I don't find it anywhere else. I mean, the other traditions have some sense, at least the personal ones have some sense that there's a supreme Lord, but not any details like this. And then if you can't get any more specific, I mean, the title itself, the divine and the demoniac nature, chapter 16. I mean, what do you mean there's a divine, or, well, not so much divine, but what do you mean there's a demoniac nature? It's kind of like in your face. It's like, yeah, there's people that are demoniac behavior. Again, just totally flies in the face. Even today, I mean, here in Ojai, we get a whole city of New Age people. And if you suggest that, maybe your behavior is not exactly what we would consider to be appropriate, people get upset. They like to think of themselves as, well, I'm such a wonderful person, but actually, well, maybe according to Krishna, you're not such a wonderful person, and you might want to look at that. So anyhow, this is my real genuine appreciation of who Srila Prabhupada was. He gave us specific parameters and boundaries, and, from the engineer's point of view, really answered the questions and gave us the foundation for how to live a life that makes sense, and you're not fooling yourself, and you're not settling for pithy maxims and what they call them, just little moralistic codes that everybody can sort of figure out on their own, mode of goodness type stuff. But he actually really gave us a definition of what it meant to be all you can be, is become a devotee, become a serious devotee, and try to actually teach these principles. So this is my glorification of Prabhupada. Then, of course, we know that on top of all of that, which was, for me, that was all I needed. But then on top of all that, what did he do? He printed all of these books. And then he started temples. And he actually taught us deity worship. I mean, amazing. It's absolutely amazing that in the Western world, we're raised as Malechas and Sujas. And somehow or another, he convinced us that we should actually start doing deity worship and really understanding what it meant to be a servant of God. What a powerful tool. So despite all of the obstacles and what I knew would be a big turmoil in my life, I was my senior year in college at the University of Kansas studying industrial design. I could not resist this point of the four flaws. I could not find a wiggle room to get around it. And I had to actually surrender to the fact that if I really am going to be honest with myself, I have imperfect senses. I do make mistakes. I have a propensity to be illusion, and I have a propensity to cheat. And I can't, and I really spent like 3 or 4 months trying to figure out how to wiggle around those parameters. Because again, as an engineer, no. You can't, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and you got to go to something else. And I couldn't figure out how to wiggle around that. So despite what I knew would be a tremendous turmoil in my life, I quit my college in my senior year because I understood. And I mean, I had a little bit of a selfish personal motive because at the time I probably was, very, very old, and I could see that, he wasn't going to live forever. And if I wanted to have the privilege of becoming his disciple, I couldn't continue to go to college. I couldn't take that risk. So I dropped out, became his disciple the following year. And, I've never looked back and thought that was a bad. I eventually went on and finished my degree. But the point is I never looked back and felt that there was any kind of mistake or error in any of that. And that's my glorification of Srila Prabhupada. That's my Vyasa Puja offering. And I thank you all for listening very patiently, and hope that that was adequate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so very much, Maheshwar Prabhu.